Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Tomorrow's Politics series from Logos Public Affairs here in Brussels. We've got a really special episode here today and a really special person that we're going to meet. Obviously, it's coming at a time when a lot's happening. There's a lot of geopolitical issues, and of course, we've had some very interesting election results. So, an interesting time for politics and an interesting time for the topic that we want to discuss today, which is energy. You probably guessed that by the lightning bolt that we have there on the desk. But enough from me. I'm very happy to welcome a very special guest today, who is Rosalinde van der Vlies, who's working for DG which is the department responsible for research and innovation at the European Commission. And she's the director for a very important part of that department, which is the Clean Planet Directorate. And so I'm really interested to find out more about that, Rosalinde. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eddie. Great to be here.
So maybe just if we start first a bit about yourself, how is it that you first became interested in politics and policy, and what is it that brought you to Brussels?
Well, actually, I came to Brussels to follow my love. So I'm actually from the Netherlands. I studied law there and I wanted to be a public prosecutor. So I specialized in criminal law, and that was kind of like my, envisaged career path. But then I met my now husband, who is Belgian. And then I decided, well, I need to kind of like change my specialization. So I specialized in European law. That allowed me to move to Brussels to become a lawyer here at the law firm. But then I realized as a lawyer, I was working for big multinational companies, trying to find loopholes in the laws, to make our multinational companies even more rich. And then I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to work for the European Commission where you actually can make proposals for law that are not in the interest of one company, but that are in the interest of, all the Europeans. So then I was lucky enough to pass a competition, and that's how I ended up in the European Commission. Now, more than 20 years, and I'm still extremely excited to be working for an institution where you can really work in the general interest rather than in the interest of just one individual company.
Okay, thank you, Rosalinda. That's really interesting. I think it's a story that is shared by many in Brussels. In fact, that they end up meeting the person that they end up with there, and then a lot of people, they'll start in their career maybe on a different path, and then they'll end up working for the European project and see the importance of what we do here for citizens. And so that's why it's really great to have you here today. So, but let's move on to the topic that we really want to discuss. So, energy. And the first thing that I wanted to ask you is for you. So, obviously, Clean Planet Director. That's a big title. Uh, what are you exactly doing there, and what's the last kind of commission period, so like the last 5 years, and what kind of challenges or missions have you been assigned to deal with within that directorate?
Yeah, so I mean, I know the job title is like super broad, and often when I speak at conferences and I'm being announced as a speaker, the moderator goes like, "Oh wow, this person has such a great job title." But of course, I mean, I'm Clean Planet Director, but in the Department for Research and Innovation, which kind of like limits the mandate. So the main focus of the directorate is really to invest in innovative solutions in order to accelerate the clean energy transition. So energy is a really important part of the clean planet, but then we also are responsible for the whole mobility sector, where again we are investing in innovative solutions to decarbonize also the mobility sector. We are also responsible for nuclear energy. Which, when I started on the Clean Planet 3 years ago, my nuclear people, they were like, we feel a bit like we are the odd ones out. But I really think, in the past 3 years, you really see a huge development also from a political point of view, that there's much more acceptance also that nuclear energy definitely also has a role to play, in our European Green Deal and our big climate ambitions that we have as a European Union to become the first climate neutral continent in the world. But of course, it's also really up to the member states to decide what is for them, their best energy mix. And then there's one last project that I want to mention that is also part of our Clean Planet, and that is the European Mission for Cities. And it's really amazing. So we have now, as part of the Horizon Europe program, which is our European program for research and innovation, we started with a new instrument which we call missions. And the idea really was to bring also science and research closer to the citizens. So the mission that we have with the cities is that we are working with 100 cities in Europe that have set themselves the ambition to be climate neutral already by 2030, which is like super ambitious. And it's really very, very cool for us to be working with them, because what we do with the cities is that rather than focusing just on one sector, like on mobility or energy or buildings, within the mission, we focus basically on the climate neutrality as a cross-sectoral issue. And then the cities that are part of the mission, they have developed action plans where basically, helping them to adopt the right measures to become climate neutral by 2030. And we have been also really successful in engaging more investors, including private investors, to really support the cities to also finance, the bringing to the market of these new solutions. So the city's mission is a really cool, kind of like innovative project that is also part of the Clean Planet.
Okay, that sounds actually fantastic, and there's a few things I want to pick up on there actually because there's a lot of information that you've given us there. First of all, just to comment the this kind of missions approach. I think this is a trend that we're seeing more and more in policymaking from the public institutional side, and it seems to be playing well with businesses as well as citizens because, of course, with a mission, a mission must be accomplished, and it kind of does away with the kind of myth around policy making that it's just pushing paper around. So we're talking about cities, of course, and energy mix. This is a complex picture, right? So how do you manage that? And we have heard a bit at Logos about like new innovations and artificial intelligence and this type of thing. But is that all hype? Like, can artificial intelligence help to kind of make sure that we manage all of these complexities, or how is it being approached within your department?
Yeah, I mean, I think artificial intelligence, you're right, it's a hype, but I think it's a hype for a reason as well. And I think it's very clear that we can really harness the potential of artificial intelligence to make our energy systems more reliable, more efficient, more sustainable. And I think from the European Union perspective, we've always said that we want to, accelerate the green and digital transitions for Europe. And I think we can be really proud that we are like the first continent with a comprehensive regulation on artificial intelligence. So I think we, as a European Union, are really seeing the potential there and making sure also that, when we embrace artificial intelligence, we also do it in a safe way, and also make sure that, of course, in the end, we need to make sure that we use it in an unbiased way, that we keep the control over the artificial intelligence by humans. So I'm really thinking that again, Europe is kind of like front runner here when it comes to regulating the use of artificial intelligence. And from the research perspective, we really are investing a lot in research projects that use artificial intelligence. And for instance, to go back to the energy systems, you can use artificial intelligence data to better predict, for example, how variable renewable energy sources can be used. So I think there are lots of examples where artificial intelligence and digitalization can be used to make our energy system much more smart, and therefore also much more reliable and efficient.
I think we need to embrace rather than fear it, and I think from our side, it's been great to see that the EU is at the forefront of actually trying to put down on paper a way that we can manage and make the most out of artificial intelligence while dealing with the risks. But from your point of view, then you see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge that we're going to have to be facing in the next sort of few years to come. Then I guess.
No, absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think for Europe also to remain a front runner, we have to, embrace the opportunity. While at the same time, of course, we need to also manage the risks. In particular, of course, the energy uses, and to make sure that we don't overcharge the grid. There are, of course, many security issues linked to that as well. But I do think that the risks are, as well as the opportunities, are both on our radar screen, and I think we are, managing both. But I mean, in general, I think the balance is extremely positive. And I
Okay.
think we can contribute a lot from the research and innovation side on really harnessing the potential of artificial intelligence to accelerate again, our clean energy transitions in Europe.
Okay. You mentioned financing, and we've got the multi-annual financial framework, or as the policy wonks here call it MFF, coming up. Do you think that that's going to be a challenge for kind of financing the transition?
I think the MFF is, of course, an issue that is extremely important. Um, let's not forget that the current MFF, if you look at the total investments that are needed to finance, the green transition, but also the digital transition, MFF is only 1% of the European GDP. So, I mean, it may sound like, a lot of money that goes into the European budget, but then if you look at it on a wider scale, it's still, if you want, a drop in the ocean.
But is it enough then?
Well, that's why I do think, I think the MFF alone is definitely not enough. And that's why I do think it's extremely important that we continue to collaborate very closely, at different levels of governance. So the EU level together with the national level, but also with the regional and local level, like what we are doing with the cities mission. And it's also extremely important that the public and the private sector is working, very much together and hand in hand. So
Mhm.
I do believe we need to develop kind of like a common strategic vision. Where do we want to go with the European Union? Not only the strategic vision to be developed by the European institutions, but together with the member states, together with the regions, the cities, the industry, and that we can all align the investments that we are making, along kind of like common priorities that we set together. And in the area of research and innovation, we have Horizon Europe, which is our European framework program for research and innovation. We have 95.5 billion euros for the current MFF. And it is actually the biggest publicly funded program for research and innovation in the world. But again, if you look at what member states invest in research and innovation, what the companies in Europe invest in research and innovation, then still what we do at EU level is again just 10% of the total investments that are being made. And that's why for us it's so important to collaborate both with member states and with industries. So if we have for instance, if I have some space for a few examples, I mean, we have the set
If you
plan.
have the
Yeah,
time, we'd love to hear it. So
I'm really proud of it because I really think that collaboration is in the DNA of us Europeans, but then in particular in research and innovation, we have always put a lot of emphasis on collaboration. So we have the Strategic Energy Technology Plan, and there we are collaborating European Commission with member states, with companies, industry, but also academia, SMEs. And in the context of the Strategic Energy Technology Plan, together with both public and private sector, we are developing kind of like strategic agendas on different energy technologies. So there, this set plan, it's called in the Brussels bubble speak, strategic energy technology plan. It's really one instrument that really helps us to develop a common vision, a common agenda that we can then, invest in both as commission, but also member states and also companies, etc.
and have
Yeah.
you completed some of these plans already? Is there an example you could give me, or is there one that you're working on right now that's particularly interesting for people to
Yeah.
hear about?
Well, recently we have published a joint strategic research and innovation agenda on solar energy. And
Okay.
this joint agenda has been developed based on, the work of the set plan community. And now, in moving forward in its implementation, it will trigger collective investments, and also it will avoid duplications, right? Because now it's very clear, like these type of projects we will be funding at EU level, and then also member states know what the others are doing, so that we can really also much better align our strategic agendas. So that's one concrete example.
Okay.
But another example is that we partner a lot with the industry.
Hmm.
And so we have already on the Clean Planet, we have 49 partnerships
Hmm.
that we have set up with different industrial sectors, like the hydrogen sector, the aviation sector, road transport, waterborne. And I think this is really a very, very important instrument because, first of all, when we partner up with industry, again, we develop a common vision of what is kind of like strategically important for Europe,
Hmm.
but also we bring together money. So, from the commission side, we put some money on the table, and then also the industry, they also then match the funding that we put from the EU side. So this is what we then call it kind of like the leverage effect of our
Yeah.
European investments. And I think that's also,
Yeah.
a really, really important form of collaboration.
Yeah, for sure. I guess as well, the industry they're not known for being quiet, and so you'll be hearing what needs to happen from them. What we hear from industry when we're talking about green energy, one big message is the need for a scale up. Like we don't actually have the capacity there in Europe for that to be a viable alternative for, especially for the hard to abate sectors. Do you think that these kind of strategic agendas are focusing a lot on like scale up of renewables? Is that the thing, or is it more on the innovation and technology side?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an extremely important point because, when we were looking at the results of our previous framework program for research innovation in Europe, which was called Horizon 2020, we basically saw that we were doing great in Europe when it comes on doing new science. We have top-notch researchers in the European Union, so, you could say that we are in Europe kind of like a scientific powerhouse, right, compared to the rest of the world. But then if you take it one step further and you look, to what extent have we in Europe been able to commercialize the successes of this scientific powerhouse, there we were really lagging behind compared to our competitors. And that's why in Horizon Europe, we have set up the European Innovation Council. In Brussels lingo, it's called the EIC
Hmm.
because we love abbreviations, of course. And the mission of the EIC in particular is to support the scaling up of the innovative solutions. And then, of course, within the MFF, you have other European programs that invest in the deployment of the innovative solutions that have been developed through our European Framework Program for Research and Innovation. So we basically invest in pre-commercial innovative solutions. And then to commercialize these solutions, there are other European programs available. But of course, also, we need private investments as well to do that.
Mm.
But it's true that this is often very challenging. And, some people call it the valley of death. That
Mm.
you come to research and development, then you have kind of like demonstrated that an innovative solution can work in practice, and then that there's valley of death that has to be overcome in order then to really commercialize, bring the solutions to the market, and to scale up
Mhm.
these solutions.
Mhm.
And I think this is an issue that, in particular, the next MFF should look at,
Mhm.
that we overcome the so-called valley of death for
Okay.
Europe. And I think with our, industrial policy, in particular with the Net Zero Industry Act, that was recently adopted by the European Parliament and the Council, there's much more attention and focus now, to make sure that we develop the manufacturing capacity inside the European Union for critical net zero technologies. So I think, it's very much on our radar screen. Also, we are very much looking forward to the report from Mr. Draghi, who will be providing his advice to Mrs. von der Leyen and the forthcoming college on how we can really strengthen the competitiveness of the European industry. So I'm really sure we will hear much, much more about this also in the context of the next MFF and the priorities that the new college will be developing.
Okay, thank you, Rosalinda. That's again very interesting to hear. You don't have all day, of course, but I'd like to just continue with the that imagery of Valley of Death. It's a rather morbid one, but it's a nice segue actually into a brighter topic that I'd like to talk to you about today as well, which is that you've mentioned collaboration and the importance of both global, EU, national, and down to city level, and then collaborating with researchers, innovators, and then collaborating with industry as well. At Logos, we're very much into that approach to policy making because we think that's what makes policy making most effective. And together with Business Bridge Europe, which is part of the family of companies that Logos works for, which is the MCI group, we're organizing the Inner Green Deal conference, and that's exactly the idea: is to bring everyone to the table. So will we be seeing you there at the conference?
Oh, definitely. That sounds super interesting.
Okay, that's great. Because my next question then would be, obviously we'll be hearing from people from the Department for Energy, people from the Department for Environment, and maybe even national level lawmakers as well. But on the research and innovation side, in that kind of context where we're thinking about the big issue of how do we make sure that Europe is both sustainable and competitive for the future, what would be the main message you'd be bringing to the conference?
Yeah, well, I think it's very, very important. Of course, we need the technologies to accelerate the transitions. And on the technological side, of course, there are already many technological solutions that are now ready to be scaled up. But still, we are missing, if we want to meet our objective of becoming climate neutral by 2050, 35% of the technologies that we would need for that are currently not yet on the market. So we still need, and we need to continue with research and innovation to, constantly look for new technologies for the longer term ambition that we have. So not the 2030, but more the 2050 perspective. Then for the shorter term, research innovation is still needed, in particular to reduce the costs. Because I think, and this is something that I would like to highlight as well, research innovation is not only about technological developments, it's also about the societal dimension of the transition. And there we need to make sure that, the transition is also affordable, that we have the buy-in from our citizens for the transition, and that we have behavioral change. Because in the end, we can have all the technological solutions that we need. If there's no buy-in, if there's no behavioral change, if our citizens are not with us, we can forget about it. So this is also something that is a very important part of what we look at in the research innovation department. And the last thing I would mention, it's also linked to security and independence, sovereignty of the European Union. There we are, for instance, very much also looking in reducing our dependency in Europe on certain critical materials that we need for the energy transition. So here I'm thinking about substitution of certain substances, but also, recyclability, these kind of things to really reduce our dependency also on the material side.
We got 3 for 1 there. So, first key message: we're missing. You were saying a third, 35% of innovative solutions need to be brought to market by 2050 for us to reach our climate target. So that's a big ambition, but it's something that we can do. Second main message: this is a team effort. And your last point, security, critical raw materials. We need to focus on value chains and how we're using our resources, I suppose, would be the simplest way of putting it. Does that sound about right, Rosalinda?
That's perfect, Eddie. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.